What happens when one of the most famous princes in the world walks onto late-night television and completely loses control? In just 34 seconds, a single comment would turn a friendly interview into an absolute disaster that ended with security escorting a royal off the set. This is the story of how Prince Harry got kicked off The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It started like any other celebrity interview. The lights were bright, the audience was excited, and Stephen Colbert sat behind his desk with that warm smile he always has. Prince Harry walked out in a casual suit, waving to the crowd as they cheered. Everything seemed normal, everything seemed fine, but it wouldn't stay that way for long. Stephen started with the usual pleasantries. "Prince Harry, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here." Harry sat down, adjusting his jacket. "Thanks for having me, Stephen." "Adderver. So you've been in America for a while now. How are you finding life here compared to the UK? Harry leaned back in his chair, and there was something about his posture that felt off. "Well, it's different. Less restrictive. People here actually understand what freedom means." The audience laughed a little, thinking it was a joke. Stephen smiled, trying to keep things light. "Freedom is a big part of the American dream. What do you think has been the biggest change for you?" "Honestly, being able to speak my mind without a bunch of old men in suits telling me what I can and can't say." Stephen nodded, still friendly. "That must be refreshing. Though I imagine some structure can be helpful too, right?" Harry's expression shifted. His eyes narrowed just slightly. "Structure? You mean control? There's a difference, Stephen." The energy in the room changed. You could feel it. Stephen, being the professional he is, tried to steer things back on track. Sure. So tell me about your latest project. You've been working on some really interesting initiatives." But Harry wasn't interested in talking about his projects. "You know what's interesting, Stephen? How Americans think they understand royalty. You see it in your movies, your shows. You have no idea what it's actually like." Stephen's smile became a little more fixed. "Well, that's why we have you here, to help us understand." "Do you really want to understand? Or do you just want me here for ratings?" The audience went quiet. This wasn't playful banter anymore. This was uncomfortable. Stephen kept his composure, his voice still calm and kind. "I think our audience genuinely wants to hear your perspective, Harry. That's why we invited you." Harry laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was sharp, right, just like every other talk show host. You all want the same thing. A headline. A viral moment. Well, congratulations, Stephen. You're about to get one. Stephen sat up a little straighter. "Harry, I'm not sure what you mean by that. We're just having a conversation." "A conversation?" Harry's voice was getting louder now. "You call this a conversation? You sitting there with your cute little jokes, pretending you're not just another media puppet?" The audience shifted in their seats. Some people looked at each other, confused. Stephen's team, behind the cameras, started to look nervous. But Stephen, to his credit, stayed professional. "I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not my intention at all. I have a lot of respect for you and your family." "My family?" Harry stood up now, and that's when everyone knew this was going completely off. "The rails. Don't you dare talk about my family. You don't know anything about them. None of you do." Stephen stood up too, his hands slightly raised in a calming gesture. "Harry, please sit down. We can talk about this." "I don't want to sit down. I'm tired of sitting down. I'm tired of smiling for cameras. I'm tired of people like you acting like you care when all you want is content." "That's not fair," Stephen said, and his voice was still gentle but firm. "I've been doing this job for a long time. I respect every guest who comes on this show, including you." Harry pointed at Stephen, his finger jabbing the air. "Respect? You want to talk about respect? Let me tell you something about respect, Stephen. Respect is earned, and you haven't earned mine." The producers were definitely panicking now. You could see people with headsets talking frantically. The audience didn't know whether to gasp or stay silent. Stephen took a deep breath. I understand you might be going through something, and I want to help if I can, but you need to calm down." "Calm down?" Harry's face was red now. "Don't tell me to calm down. You sound just like them. Just like all of them back in London. Always telling me what to do, how to act, what to say." Stephen's patience was incredible. "I'm not telling you what to do. I'm asking you, as someone who's trying to have a respectful conversation, to please take a seat so we can talk this through." "I don't owe you anything," Harry shouted. The audience actually gasped this time. "I don't owe you a conversation. I don't owe you politeness. I came here thinking this would be different, but it's all the same. You're all the same." Stephen's expression changed slightly. He was still kind, but now there was a firmness there. "Harry, I've tried to be understanding. I've tried to give you space to express yourself, but I can't let you stand here and disrespect me, my team, or this audience." "Disrespect?" Harry laughed again, that same sharp, bitter laugh. "You want to see disrespect? Let me tell you what disrespect really looks like. Disrespect is being hounded by photographers your entire life. Disrespect is having every single thing you do analyzed and criticized. Disrespect is losing your mother because of people like you." The room went dead silent. That was a line that shouldn't have been crossed. Stephen's face showed genuine hurt for a moment, but he composed himself quickly. "That is completely out of line. My job is nothing like what happened to your mother, and you know that." "Do I?" Harry moved closer to the desk. "You're all part of the same machine, Stephen. The media machine that destroys people. And you sit there with your jokes and your audience thinking you're better than the rest of them." Stephen's voice was firm now. "I think you need to leave." "What?" Harry looked almost surprised, like he didn't expect consequences. "I said, I think you need to leave. This interview is over." Harry's face twisted into something ugly. "You're kicking me out? You're actually kicking me out?" "Yes," Stephen said simply. "I've been patient. I've been respectful. But I won't stand here and let you attack me or my integrity. This is my show, and I'm asking you to leave." "Your show?" Harry's voice dripped with contempt. "Your show is a joke. You're a joke. All of this is a joke." Stephen didn't rise to the bait. He simply gestured to someone off camera. "Security, please escort our guest out." 2 security guards appeared from the wings. They were polite but firm as they approached Harry. "Sir, we need you to come with us." Harry looked at them, then back at Stephen, then at the audience. For a moment, it seemed like he might say something else. His mouth opened, then closed. The reality of what was happening seemed to hit him all at once. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, but his voice had lost its fire. The security guards gently guided him toward the exit. Harry pulled his arm away. "I can walk myself out, thank you very much." But they stayed close to him anyway as he walked off the stage. The audience sat in stunned silence. Nobody knew if they should clap or stay quiet. Most people just stared. Stephen stood there for a moment, watching Harry disappear backstage. Then he turned back to the audience. His face was calm, but you could see he was processing what had just happened. "Well," he said, and his voice had that slight tremor that comes after an adrenaline rush. "That was unexpected." A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. Stephen sat back down at his desk, straightening his papers even though they didn't need straightening. It was something to do with his hands. "I want to say something," Stephen continued, looking directly at the camera. "I have enormous respect for anyone who's been through trauma. I have respect for anyone who's trying to find their path in life, but respect has to go both ways. And when someone comes onto this show and treats me, my team, and all of you with contempt, I can't just sit here and take it." The audience started to applaud. It built slowly at first, then grew into genuine, supportive applause. Stephen nodded, accepting it with grace. "I hope Prince Harry finds what he's looking for. I really do. But it's not going to be here. Not like that." He took a breath. Then that professional smile came back. "We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have an actual guest who actually wants to be here. We'll be right back." The cameras cut, and the audience sat there buzzing with energy. People were already pulling out their phones. This was going to be everywhere within minutes. Backstage, Harry was being led through the corridors. His face was still flushed, his jaw tight. The security guards kept their distance but made sure he kept moving toward the exit. "I don't need an escort," Harry said, his voice still angry but quieter. "Now, just doing our job, sir," one of the guards said politely. They reached the back exit where Harry's car was waiting. The door was open for him, and he climbed in without another word. As the car pulled away, the security guards exchanged glances. "That was weird," one of them said. "That was a mess," the other replied. Back in the studio, Steven was talking with his producers during the commercial break. "Are we okay to continue?" one of them asked. Steven nodded. Yeah, we're okay. Let's just move on with the show." "That took guts," another producer said. "Not many hosts would have handled that the way you did." Steven shrugged. "I wasn't going to let him bully me on my own show. There's a difference between being understanding and being a doormat." The stage manager counted down. "We're back in 5, 4, 3. The show resumed. Steven introduced his next guest with the same warmth and enthusiasm he always had. If you didn't know what had just happened, you'd never guess. That's the mark of a true professional. But the audience knew, the crew knew, and soon the whole world would know. The conversation that started as a standard celebrity interview had turned into something completely different. It revealed something about both men. Stephen Colbert showed why he's respected in his industry. He was patient, he was kind, he gave chances, but he also had boundaries. He knew when enough was enough. And Prince Harry? He showed a side of himself that shocked everyone watching. The entitled anger, the personal attacks, the complete inability to handle a simple, friendly interview. It was a meltdown captured on live television. What made it even more stunning was how unnecessary it all was. Stephen hadn't asked difficult questions. He hadn't pushed sensitive topics. He'd been welcoming and warm. But somehow, that wasn't enough. Harry had come in looking for a fight, or maybe he'd just been carrying so much anger that it had to come out somewhere. The moment that really sealed everything was when Harry brought up Stephen's relationship with the media and compared it to what happened to his mother. That was the point of no return. That was when Stephen's patience ran out, and rightfully so. No one should have to defend themselves against accusations like that, especially when they're completely down you too, unfounded. Stephen's response was perfect. He didn't yell. He didn't insult. He didn't make it personal. He simply said, "I think you need to leave." Those 6 words carried more power than any angry outburst could have. They were calm, they were final, and they were completely justified. The security escort was the final image that everyone would remember. A prince, someone born into one of the most privileged positions in the world, being walked out of a television studio because he couldn't control his temper. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In the control room, the director had made sure the cameras caught everything. Not in a sensationalist way, but because it was happening and it was real. This wasn't scripted. This wasn't planned. This was a genuine moment of television history, and it needed to be documented. The other guests scheduled for that night had watched the whole thing from the green room. They were stunned. One of them, a comedian who was supposed to go on after Harry, just kept shaking his head. "I can't believe that just happened," he said over and over. Stephen's team rallied around him during the commercial breaks. "You okay?" his executive producer asked. "I'm fine," Stephen said, and he meant it. "I've dealt with worse." "Not on live TV, you haven't." Stephen smiled a little. "True, but the principle is the same. You can't let people walk all over you, no matter who they are." The show continued for another 30 minutes. Stephen interviewed his remaining guests with the same charm and wit he always brought. He made jokes, he asked thoughtful questions, and he kept the audience engaged. If anything, people were even more attentive now, wondering if something else dramatic might happen, but nothing did. The rest of the show was perfectly normal, which somehow made Harry's outburst stand out even more. It proved that the problem wasn't the show, wasn't the format, wasn't Stephen. The problem was Harry. When the cameras finally stopped rolling and the audience filed out, the crew started breaking down the set. But everyone was still talking about what happened. It was all anyone could talk about. "Did you see his face when Stephen told him to leave?" one cameraman said. "I thought he was going to flip the desk," another replied. "Stephen handled it like a boss, though. Absolutely. Total class." Stephen himself was in his dressing room, changing out of his suit. He looked at himself in the mirror for a moment, processing the evening. Then he packed up his things and headed out. His car was waiting outside the stage door. As he climbed in, his phone was already buzzing with messages. His car was waiting outside. Wife, his friends, colleagues from other networks, everyone had seen it or heard about it. He turned his phone face down and looked out the window as the car pulled away from the studio. The city lights blurred past. In a few hours, this would be the biggest story on the internet. People would analyze every word, every gesture, every moment. But right now, in this quiet car, Stephen just felt tired. Not upset, not angry, just tired. He'd done his job. He'd maintained his dignity. He'd protected his show and his team. That's all he could do. The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Rough night, Mr. Colbert?" Stephen smiled a little. "You could say that. For what it's worth, I think you handled it perfectly." "Thanks, I appreciate that." They drove in silence for a while. Stephen's mind wandered to Harry, wondering where he was now, what he was thinking. Did he regret it? Was he embarrassed? Or was he still angry, still feeling justified in his outburst? It didn't really matter. What mattered was that Stephen had drawn a line. He'd shown that respect is a two-way street, and that fame or title doesn't give anyone the right to be cruel or dismissive. Back at the studio, the production team was already dealing with the aftermath. Phones were ringing off the hook. News outlets wanted comments. Social media was exploding. The clip was being shared thousands of times per minute. The executive producer sat in her office, watching the clip play on her computer for the 10th time. Every time she watched it, she noticed something new. The way Harry's hands clenched when Stephen first pushed back, the way Stephen's voice stayed level even as Harry got louder, the moment of recognition on Harry's face when he realized he'd gone too far. It was fascinating in a horrible way. Like watching a train wreck in slow motion, you couldn't look away. Her assistant knocked on the door. "The network wants a statement. Tell them we're preparing one. It'll be ready within the hour." "What are we going to say?" The producer thought for a moment. "The truth. That we had a guest who became hostile and aggressive, and Stephen made the decision to end the interview for the safety and comfort of everyone involved. Keep it simple. Keep it factual. Should we apologize? For what? For standing up for ourselves? Absolutely not." The assistant nodded and left. The producer turned back to her computer, but instead of watching the clip again, she pulled up footage from earlier in the evening, before Harry arrived. Stephen preparing, joking with the crew, running through his notes. He'd been in such a good mood. Nobody could have predicted how the night would turn out. In the audience seats, now empty, a few crew members were sweeping up. One of them found a piece of paper on the floor. It was from someone's notebook, and they'd scribbled notes during the interview. The handwriting was rushed, excited. "This is crazy," it said. "Is this real? Oh my God." That summed it up perfectly. The sheer disbelief that something like this could happen on a late-night talk show. These shows were supposed to be safe, predictable, fun. They weren't supposed to end with security escorts and shouting matches. But that's what made this moment so significant. It broke the format. It shattered expectations. It revealed something raw and real in a medium that's usually so polished and controlled. Stephen Colbert didn't set out to make history that night. He just set out to do his job, to host his show, to entertain his audience. But when pushed, when disrespected, when attacked, he responded with dignity and strength. And Prince Harry? He came looking for a platform and left with a scandal. He wanted to speak his truth and ended up revealing his temper. He thought he could say whatever he wanted without consequences and learned very quickly that even princes have limits. The contrast between the two men couldn't have been clearer. One was professional, patient, and principled. The other was volatile, entitled, and aggressive. One earned respect through his actions. The other demanded it because of his title. As the night wore on and the studio lights finally went dark, the moment was already being immortalized online. Clips, commentary, reactions, memes, it would be talked about for days, weeks, maybe longer. But at the heart of it all was a simple truth. When someone disrespects you, when they cross lines that shouldn't be crossed, you have every right to stand up for yourself. Fame doesn't excuse bad behavior. Titles don't justify cruelty. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is simply, "I think you need to leave." That's what Stephen Colbert did. And that's why, when the dust settled and the full story came out, he would be remembered as the person who handled an impossible situation with grace, while Harry would be remembered as the person who created it. The cameras had captured everything: the words, the gestures, the moment when friendly conversation turned into hostile confrontation. It was all there, preserved forever, a testament to what happens when entitlement meets integrity. And in the end, integrity won.